Hello and welcome to the Stories of Northern Life from the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. Keeping with the theme of Indigenous History Month, we have for you an interview with Chief Meawasige of Serpent River Reserve, as he is asked a series of questions about his day-to-day life and the life of his people on the reserve throughout his years of life. Keep in mind that this was recorded in the 1970s. We recognize that some of the language is not modern and is not acceptable. Our intention in sharing this recording and others like it is to highlight our local history as well as examples of the way Indigenous groups and nations were acknowledged, instilling how we can still do better in today's world. Now let's get into it.
Chief, a lot of the Indian names have a specific meaning. What does your name mean?
My name means high noon.
High noon.
And it's Meawasige. Well, that's thinking about the sun, you know. It's at noon hour. That's why we call it high noon.
Is that a word in the Ojibwe language?
It is.
Meawasige?
It is. Yeah.
Could you tell us, Chief, where you were born and when?
Yes, I was born on the Serpent River Indian Reserve. It's in 1897 on June 11th. So I'm almost 76 years old. And all these years that I've been living there, well, according to the conditions that were at the time, I think they were more or less a little bit not as good as they are now, but I mean, they were, you actually lived in houses. I mean, we didn't live, I don't think we lived in tents at that time, because my father, you know, always used to be able to build a house and so to keep us. I don't know how many houses he built while he was living, and giving us a fairly good accommodation.
How was a child born? They were born in the house.
That's right.
Under what conditions was a child
Well,
born?
Well, in those days, I guess it was a normal condition in those days, but I mean, they weren't all born in a hospital. Of course, I don't know about the white people, maybe there were, but the Indian people, most of the time, all children were born at home, and they had a midwife. This is the conditions that were at that time.
Was there a doctor that ever came around to deliver a child?
Yes, towards in the 1920s, around that area. They used to have a doctor come into the house then. But before that, I think they were just a midwife.
How many children were in your family?
There was 12 of us altogether, 2 girls and 10 boys.
And you were what?
Well, I was about the 5th oldest, I think. And my sister was the oldest, and my older brother was the second. And then there's a girl after me, and then from there on, the smaller ones, the younger ones.
And you spent your childhood on the Serpent River Indian Reserve?
I spent my childhood days, yes, on the Serpent River Indian Reserve. Sometimes we did go to visit where my mother came from, you know, down in Boychild.
Your mother came from where, excuse me?
Boychild.
Oh, yeah.
How was it that you traveled to your grandmother's land?
My father used to have horses, you know, horses at that time. And in the summertime, of course, we used a sailboat, travel by sailboat, you know, travel from place to place. That's where we used to travel.
How did you travel in the wintertime?
With horses.
Horses.
Yes. That's in my days, of course. And they weren't all fortunate to have horses in those days, you know, because my father used to work quite a bit. And he was a good provider.
And if they didn't have horses, how did they travel?
Well, when they didn't have horses, well then I think they used to have dogs and dog teams.
Mm-hmm. In the wintertime, did you travel across the ice of the water, the river?
Yes, it was mostly across the ice in the wintertime because there was no road from, well, say, from to go to this place. In the wintertime, we traveled by ice.
Did you have many accidents falling too?
Not that I know of, no.
What kind of house did you have?
Well, it's one of these, well, I would say the pioneer buildings. I see sometimes you see a pioneer building, just a one-room house. And there might be an upstairs to it. And the children used to all sleep upstairs because we had possibly sometimes we have 2 rooms in the house. One part is for the kitchen and eating at the same time, and the other part is for the house. Probably for the old folks to sleep in or something.
Is this the first house that you remember living in,
Yeah, that's
that you're
the first.
describing?
That's the first house that I remember.
And what was it built of or from?
Yeah, logs.
A log house.
That's a little
And
log.
did the whole family help in the building of the house?
I think the community used to help to build these houses. The community, like the men, they all have what they call a bee, and they used to work on building these houses that way.
It was like a house raising bee, and
That's
they all get together and put a house.
That's it. After we lived in that first log house that I remember, and then my dad built another house. It was a frame building. And of course, there was a sawmill in the area then. At that time, we got some lumber, all planed and everything. It was a big house, big enough for the family. So we lived there.
You moved into the other house because it was larger?
Yes.
And could accommodate your family better?
That's right.
It was in the same area, was it?
Oh yes, in the same area.
What did you do about medicines if someone fell ill?
Well, we used to get some medicine from, well, sometimes we get it from a doctor, but most of the time my mother used to go in the bush, and dig up some roots, and she used to get medicine that way. There was a lot of stuff that she knew, and my father used to know some of it. And then between the two of them, I think we lived pretty good. And there wasn't too much sickness in our family. I did go to school there on the reserve when I was young. I mean, I was just after around about 7 or 8 years old, something like that. I went to school there. Of course, the teacher at that time wasn't a qualified teacher. She was just an old lady that was striving for her living too as well, I guess. And well, anyway, she taught us what she did know. It was a little striking.
Did all the children go to the school?
Well, not all of them. Well, most of them did.
Did you speak English before you went to school?
No, I couldn't speak a word of English.
Was it just a little schoolhouse on the reserve?
That's just a little red schoolhouse on the reserve.
That the Indians had built themselves?
Yeah.
And was this teacher, was she Indian or was she?
No, she was a white woman. Yeah.
So she spoke English?
Yeah,
to
she
you,
spoke English.
and-
Yeah, she spoke English.
And you had to learn English then?
Oh, yes. From that, we learned some of the English words. Of course, we learned our ABCs and all that, from start. And in that school, I went as far as Book 1 at Ecosia.
How old would you have been then?
And Book 1, I would have been around about 8 years old.
8 years old?
Yeah. Then after that, Well, I went to a boarding school after I got done with this school, with book one. Then I went into second book, third book, and fourth book. And that is in those days. With this fourth book would be something like grade 8, 7 and 8 or something like that. It's equivalent to that. Yeah.
Did you have to pay to go to school?
No.
And where was the boarding school?
The boarding school was at Grimacon on Manitoulin Island. Yeah, we used to work there. It was more or less an industrial school. We used to work on the farm, milk cows and look after everything like farm equipment and all that. Milk cows.
And what kind of teachers did you have at the boarding school?
Well, we had a fairly good teachers in the boarding school. I mean, they were strict, but I mean, they were good. We learned something.
How did you decide to go to boarding school?
I didn't decide to go to boarding school. It was my father that decided for me to go to school. The teachers were, well, they were great people. They were English-speaking people. But the ones that were running the school, like what shall I say,
The principal, maybe?
the principals and all that, all the people that were looking after the whole school, the administration of the whole school, they were mostly French. So they spoke a lot of French, among themselves, of course. And when they were talking to us, they had this here French accent, and we couldn't very well, talk to anybody after we come out of school. I was kind of bashful myself on account of this, because I couldn't talk the way they spoke.
Did any parents come and visit their children in school?
Well, the parents from the village, only from the village that where the school was. But apart from that, I don't think there ever were.
But they were permitted to visit?
Oh yes, they were permitted if they want to come in. The name of the school was the Grimacon Industrial School. I left school around about 1910.
We'd like to ask you about religion, Bill. If there was a church in the area where you lived as a child, what religious experiences or training did you have?
Yes, there's a church there. I believe the church is older than I am, but was older than I am, but they demolished that church since then. And I was going to tell you that my mother wasn't a Catholic. She was a Protestant, and my father, he was a non-Christian. And after they got married, of course, they got married in the Catholic Church, and we were all brought up Catholic children, the whole family of us. Now, my mother used to tell us to go to church when the priest came, of course. And my father, he turned into the Catholic Church. We used to go to church. And we used to go to church only about once a month. The missionary used to come there about once a month, sometimes once a year. In the old days, this is how often we used to go to church.
Pray in Ojibwe from the Ojibwe.
Oh yes, yeah, we had to pray in Ojibwe.
Mm-hmm. And what about the hymns? Were there Ojibwe hymns?
Yeah, there were all the hymns. We didn't sing no English hymns, not in those days that I recall. Only lately this did come about.
Was the church far away from your home?
The church wasn't too far away from my place. We always managed to live closer to the church than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And when the priest wasn't there, did one of your people take over and lead the service? Or was this an individual?
Yeah, one of the, there'd be somebody there, to take over, not as a priest, but I mean, as just It's just a label.
Somebody just to lead the prayers and the hymns.
Yeah, he led the prayers and hymns and all that. My father used to work as a woodsman, like making timber and all that, you know. Of course, there was lots of places where we could get sale for this timber. And this was his occupation. He used to hunt and trap and fish. And then we had sometimes he'd go out and catch rabbits. And, you know, he was always busy. He used to go in the bush. And I remember one time he asked me to go with him back in the bush there, you know, he wanted to go and get some moose, because of moose meat. So we took the horses up the highway, up the toll road, and up there. He got his moose, 2 of them, and we brought them down to town of Measwasige. We unloaded this meat right there, right in town, broad daylight. There was no restrictions to that time, as far as our part is concerned anyway. But I don't think you could do that for a while today, you know.
So you could hunt on the reserve without a permit or...
Oh yeah, we can still do that. Even on Crown lands we can still do it, I think, according to our treaty rules.
Work did your mother do in the home?
Well, it was a different kind of work, like housekeeping and all that, and then mending clothes. I did sometimes, like in the spring of the year, we used to mow into a sugar bush, and then we used to make sugar in the spring, and we preserved this. They preserve it, not me, but I mean, but my mother and father used to preserve all this stuff, you know, for the summer months, like for the next year.
How did you make sugar?
We boiled sap in the spring. We used to, I remember my father making one of these big containers, like, you know, to put sap in. He made it out of wood. I don't know how long he worked on it, but he must have worked for a long time. And this is where we, you know, the sap in. Of course, I was young, I only had a small little pail to hold the sap in. And,
the whole family participated?
Oh yes, the whole, those that were able to.
What other preserves were made?
Oh, we used to make, my mother used to make blueberries, so all different kinds of berries in the summer months. We used to keep that for the winter months. And we used to sell blueberries, like, to company store there. And by that, they used to buy enough food or provisions that we needed, like sugar, salt, and tea, and stuff like that, you know.
Flour.
Yeah, flour. You know, we used to have enough, you know, for the winter.
How did your mother preserve berries and things? What was put into it? Was it a jam that she made or something?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, she used to preserve them just like put sugar in.
Put them in a jar?
Put them in a jar. So.
Did you preserve any meat?
Yes, we used to preserve meat too. I mean, we used to put them in the jars and boil them in a big pot to put the jars in there and boil this meat. You know, for the summer months.
And what kind of clothes did you wear?
Well, nowadays, I mean, we really wore the ordinary sort of clothes that other people wore.
Your mother didn't make clothes out of moose hide or deer hide?
No. No, the only thing that she used to make was moccasins. This was what we used to wear, like, in the wintertime. And we used to get some kind of a wrap around our feet to keep our feet warm, you know.
And how did you cook? How did your mother cook meals in the house?
Well, as far as I know, I think she used to cook by boiling most of the meat. I mean, just plain boiled stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing fancy.
Did you have what kind of stove did you have?
Well, we had an old cook stove, like the old-fashioned cook stove that when I first called about a stove in it. It's one of these stoves that there's a big oven up on the top there. I don't know whether you ever saw it. You might have seen the picture of it. These are the kind of stoves we used to have.
It was an oil stove.
It's an all wood stove, you know.
Oh, wood stove.
Wood stove. Wood stove.
And did you eat anything raw? Any raw meats or fish?
Well, no, we never eat anything raw. Not, I don't think we were brought up that way. Not to eat the raw meat or anything like that. The only thing that we used to eat was something that's dried, like, you know, you dry some of this meat and hang it up on a rack over the fire, and then this meat dries up. And then later on, sometimes when you want to eat this meat, well, you put it in a pot and boil this thing down, put some flavor in it of some sort, like salt, pepper, oil, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. They used to do that. We ate like that. It softened it, you know, a little, and you could eat it, you know, without doing that too. You eat it just dry.
What was the main source of meat for you?
Well, it's mostly wild meat that we used to have. Wild.
Was it deer or moose?
Well, deer, moose, and stuff like that, and rabbits.
Did you ever have a cookout on an open fire with a spit?
Oh yes. Of course, when you go in the sugar camp, you have an open fire there where you boil your sap and stuff, you know, and then you're cooked in alongside of this, so I mean, in with this stuff. Not in the sap, but I mean, you have a separate pot for cooking.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how to make bannock?
Yeah, I know how to make bannock.
How do you make it?
Yeah, when you just have sort of, when you have flour, water, salt, and baking powder, and you put a little, if you want to soften it a little bit, you put a little bit of lard, or, you know, shortening or something.
What is it exactly? What is it?
What do you do with it then?
Well, you cook it.
You cook it.
You put
It's
it
like
in,
a biscuit, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Oh, it's in
yeah, it's something like something like biscuits.
Well, how did you eat it? How did you eat it then?
Well, we just eat it like nowadays anyway. We eat butter and stuff like that. You know, got it.
So you
So
bake
you
it.
put it in the oven. Yeah, we put it in the oven. And when you cook it outside, all you do is just put some pull the ashes out from the fire there a little bit, and then you set your frying pan up where whatever you're going to use to cook it with, and you put it alongside the fire, and then you watch it. As long as you don't let it burn, it's all right. That's the way all the Indians all through the country, this is the way they cook it.
And that's the way your mother cooked it too,
Yes,
was
my
it?
mother cooked it, and that is when we were in the sugar camp.
And where did you get your water from?
We got the water from the spring, just about 200 yards away. Mm-hmm. Brought the water in. That is in the winter time. And, well, in the summertime as well, we used to have spring water. We have to carry the water we use for cooking, all that sort of stuff. And my mother used to go, like, for washing clothes, she used to go down to the lake and, you know, and pound the clothes with the club. And she used to take some soap and wash the clothes out in the lake, in the bay.
Mm-hmm. Play any specific games with the other children on the reserve?
Oh yeah, we used to play all different kind of games. Like we played hide and go seek and all that sort of stuff. Play ball. We played what they called an Indian game. We didn't play baseball in those days. Not when I was a child. You know.
Could you tell us some of the other things that you used to do when you got together as a group of boys? Did you, what kind of activities did you do?
Well, we used to go swimming and all that, you know, out in the lakes in the summertime. Of course, in the winter time we'd go sliding. You know, pick up a good place to slide. And be there sometimes till way in the night, you know.
Mm-hmm. Like a tobogganing?
Oh yes, so yes, they had toboggans. Those days, Indians used to make their own toboggans, you know, not the way the factory made ones. Mm-hmm. They weren't like that. They were toboggans.
Could you describe them to us? How you made them?
Well, they used to whittle the wood, you know, split it and whittle it down to, you know, about a half an inch thick or something like that. Like in strips, the way the toboggans are made, in those sort of strips, and make a toboggan like that. And it was all planned by with a draw knife or something, you know. And it's like in a cold day, on a cold winter day, then you put ice on top there, you know, on the bottom of this toboggan. And then so it'll slide good.
Did the girls play with you?
Oh
also?
yes, the girls used to play with us, and the boys.
Did the girls wear skirts or slacks?
Oh yes, they wore skirts. Didn't wear no jeans that time.
In the winter time, how did they keep their legs warm?
Oh well, I mean, they put on more clothes, I guess.
The skirts were quite long, I imagine, weren't they?
Yes, yeah.
And they had boots and...
Yeah, the dresses were long.
Go back to your father's occupation. Could you tell us what methods he used, for instance, to trap and to fish? Let's take the trapping. What kind of traps did he use?
Well, he used to do trapping by using the ordinary traps in those days, like the Hudson Bay traps.
Was that a metal thing?
Yeah, well, it was maybe double wing or something like that. And like catching rabbits, well then sometimes he used to make what they call the deadfalls, you know, and he used to have some. Usually he used to use the inner bark of a cedar, and then you salt that, you know, soak it in salt water. Now when the rabbit comes there, you put some sticks there, what they feed on. Then they come to this here salted bark, and then it goes right in there, and it's tied somewhat like that, you know. The string is tied there about halfway there. Well, then the salted thing is, you know, the rabbit comes and eats all that until he comes to this one. Of course, this thing that's up and down like this, that holds the weight. When he cuts that, and then the weight drops, and then we'll have this caught. They used to use that even for mink. They used to do that. Put some kind of bait there. So, and he puts this bait, and then this thing drops on a mink, and then it stays right there.
And what about fishing?
Fishing? Well, they used to fish. You know, they done a lot of fishing in my days, my younger days. They used to do a lot of fishing, but they used the ordinary fishing nets. You know, they catch a lot of fish in the fall. In the fall of the year, they used to keep a lot of fish for the winter. For the winter months, of course, there was some buyers too that could buy this fish from them.
Did they ice fish much? Did they go ice fishing?
Ice fishing, oh yeah.
How would they catch fish through the ice?
Through the ice. I mean, if they use the net, they used to use a pole to, shove it through under the ice.
Oh, I see.
And, up at the other end, they measured the length of the net and go between the other end, and they take this line or the pole out and take the line and pull the net in through.
Remember the first job you had?
Oh yeah, my first job that I went to was back in the woods, back in the bush for a lumber company. I was about 13 years old then. When I started working in the bush when I was that age. I used to just do common labor. I wasn't an expert of anything. And that was the start of it. But when I become to be older, and then I was more of an expert in bushwork.
How old were you when you first went? How old were you when you first went to the lumber camps?
I was about 13 years old. As it went along, I mean, went into the bush. I got to like working in the bush. I worked all over along the line here, different companies.
What kind of work did you do when you first started?
Well, I was working as a swamper, they call that. That is, you cut trails for horses to haul these logs up. Call them swampers. This is what I used to do. I was swamping.
And later on, you did something else.
Well, later on, I used to do like log rolling and all that. Like in the winter time, we load logs on sleighs and horses take these down to the lake or river. It was a very interesting job. Of course, in the summertime, when we started to drive those logs down the river, we start pretty early in the spring. Just as soon as the river opens up, the water gets pretty cold. You got to wade in that water, in that ice cold water in the spring. It was hard in a way, but still, I mean, after you get used to it, you don't mind it.
Were there very many accidents in the camps?
There weren't too many accidents. They were pretty careful. I mean, most of the men were, pretty well experienced in that line of work.
Did the company give the men any kind of training before they started a particular job?
No. No, you don't get any kind of a training. The only training that you get is what training that you get from your partners, like the older men. Like when I first started, I used to get some instructions from the older log drivers or older bushmen. This is how we get their training.
So what kinds of accidents happened on that part of the work?
Well, when you break a jam, sometimes it's on a river. There's a jam. Well, there's a bunch of logs holding back. The other bunch of logs at the back there, So you have to break the front end of this jam to get the whole thing started. Sometimes we used to use dynamite to break the jam. If it's too dangerous, if you get the logs moving down the river. So we used to work from daylight till dark. You get up early in the morning, but it's in the summertime. You get up early in the morning and you work till late that night. Of course, you got 4 meals a day. That's one good thing about it. You never went hungry. You always had something to eat.
What was the pay?
The rate of pay in those days when I was on the railroad drive was about $2 a day, and you worked these about 14, 15 hours a day. The only leisure time that you have working in the woods was on a Sunday. That's the only time. The time is too short.
In these years, how often did you get home? Do you remember?
There's a lot of times that I didn't go home. Of course, that was before I was married.
Yes.
Didn't go home too much. I just went home once a year sometimes.
You continue your studies? You were only 13 when you went to work.
Yeah, I did continue my studies. Not the first year that I went in the bush, but the following years. I used to take my books with me and study like in the evening, sometimes on a Sunday. This is what I used to do.
Sometime during your work at the lumber camps, you were married, and could you tell us how you met your wife? And
Yeah, I met my wife there then in that little town. I don't know whether I should mention the town of Blind River.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah, that's where I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
After I finished lumbering or log driving and stuff like that. The last place I drove was over here in Garden River. That is 1926. I was old enough to get married. But I had been married before, I was married for about 3 years previous to that, and then I lost my wife. But I didn't get married, not for another 2 years. I stayed single. So I traveled around quite a bit in those days, working here and there.
How old were you when you got married?
The last time that I got married was, I was 30, 32, something like that.
So you were about 26?
Yeah, I was about 24 when I first got married. I had 2 children. They both died of GB. And I don't know, my wife died too at that time. She died of, I don't know what she died from. I couldn't say. I mean, she just, and after I got married the second time, I lived with this woman with her for about 42 years. And she passed away about 3 years ago. And I raised about 11 children with her. I had 2 previous to that. So I had 13 children.
Mm-hmm. Were you married in a church?
Yes.
You were. Was it a Catholic church?
Catholic church, both times, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And your wife then was Catholic as well at the time?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Was there a marriage ceremony, a celebration following the ceremony?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a marriage celebration both times.
And you were married in Blind River?
No, I was married on the reserve place.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What kind of celebration did you have?
We just dance, like square dancing and all that. We lived in Blind River after I got married. We lived in Blind River for a while. I worked there for the lumber company, the Carpenter and Hickson lumber company. Yeah, my children, of course, they could grow up very long, but on the first part of my marriage, my children were small. Some of them got into, and actually one of them fell in a well. We used to get water from a well, like guess I don't know what he was going to do. He was only a small little chap. And I guess he fell in there. He got drowned in the water. And I had another accident. One of my little girls got poisoned. It was overdose of pills. I mean, we had pills up on the shelf. Like, I don't know how they got up to the top. One of my grandchildren almost got killed too at the same time. So the doctor had to come in time to survive her.
Were they all born at home?
Yes. Yes, they were born. They weren't all born at home because at that time the doctors, used to take the women to the hospital. They were born mostly in the hospital all my time.
Did they just caught some kind of sickness? Did you take them to the doctor or?
Oh yes, we had means and ways of transportation at the time. I used to have a car, that could take them.
Did you have any of your own medicine? That.
Well, we did have our own medicine, all right, but then in order to make things much easier for us, we take to the doctor. Of course, the Department of Indian Affairs used to pay for all of our doctor bills and all medicine, any medicine that we get with them free.
Did you ever make any of your own, like special Indian remedies or anything like that?
Oh yes, we did make some.
What kind?
Well, it was my wife used to make this here. She used to call it the heart medicine. One of my girls that's married now, she's in Toronto. She used to take this medicine. Her wife used to make it.
Do you know how?
Yeah, just about, and the daughter used to drink this, she kind of she got cured with it. The doctor said when she was a little girl, that she wouldn't reach womanhood. But she became a mother of 5 children. And her children is pretty well grown up, like 12 years old. Just a wonderful thing. Sometimes the doctors can be wrong,
Yeah, sure.
You called that heart medicine? Is that what you said? Was there any other kind of medicine?
Oh, we had different kinds for colds. And I used to see my wife doing was, she'd take salt and put it in a bag, right? And she'd heat that up and just put that on and sweating it, it starts to, and your teeth start to deal with the pus comes up. You relieve that soreness there.
Do you remember visiting the dentist to have a tooth pulled?
Oh yes. Well, we had a doctor there. He was a very good doctor in Grand River. Well, we provide for my family pretty well, and then after a certain amount of years that I was married with the second wife, we had a home. I had a home before I married the second wife. I bought a home when I got married the first time, and then left that. And I come back to that home after. And I raised my children in that home. Finally, I tore that house down and built another one. I done that during a depression time. It was hard going, but I managed to get through it. A certain time, I was living on the reserve then. They asked me if I could, act as a counselor. I got into the council. I was in council for about 12 years. And then later on, I was elected as the chief of the reserve. And I was a chief there for quite a number of years, I think around 27 years. So, and during those times of being a chief, we used to travel quite a bit, go from place to place to these conventions and all that. This is where I learned a lot of things about how to run our business on the reserve. And I've traveled quite a bit. And I used to work at the same time too, of course. I took time off to go someplace on band business. I took time off and done this. When I was first become a chief, the land was sold, previous to that, to some other company that bought this land from us. It was sold to 7 members of the reserve. And I went to Ottawa and I went to find out about this, to kind of find things out, what was happening or what came about at that time. So anyway, I found out that this land was sold, and after I became a chief, then I started negotiating with the Indian agent and asked him if this thing could be bought back again. So I said, sure. All you gotta do is just pass a resolution and we'll see what we can do. Of course, he didn't say we would, but he said we'd see what we can do. So anyway, I passed this resolution. I bought this land back. This was one of the first things that I'd done, just to buy this land. And then later on, we had a chance to rent this piece of ground, this part of it, Of course, we leased almost 100 acres to this Noranda Mines at, we were getting $3,000 a year, that is, for our ground. And what I paid for this land was a little over $2,000, after I bought it back from the company. So I made my money. We made our money this, the first year of that rent. And then from there on, we rented it for another 10 or 12 years, I think. So we didn't lose anything on that deal. We worked for this company that leased this property. We worked with all the boys that was able to work, that wanted to work. They all got a job, everyone. Even some Indians from the outside used to come there, get a job as well. And they worked there free of taxes, they didn't pay no income tax. Even Indians from the outside, from another reserve, they come there and work on the reserve, and then they didn't have to pay no income tax. This was the beautiful part of it.
The company stopped operating there?
In 1962, I think. 1962.
Before there was any cars?
Oh yeah.
How did you get around then?
Oh well, we used to get around by boat, a sailboat.
Oh, your own made them yourself, or did you?
No, I really don't know. Some people some Indians used to make their own sailboats and all that. I don't remember whether my dad used to make his own sailboat or not. He probably bought it. I don't think he was much of a carpenter.
Did you use horses or dogs or in the winter?
Well, we had horses. My dad had horses. I always had horses as far as I can remember. And I had horses too while I was working for the company there. And I used to do some fishing, do commercial fishing. That's before this plant come in. I used to do this. I had horses. I had some nets. I had quite a number of jars of nets. I used to catch sturgeon. I used to catch some big ones. And I used to ship this fish, to the States. I got a good price for it. So I was making money both ways. Like I was working in the bush with my horses, and then my nets were in the water. In the evening, I used to go out there and, lift my nets. Well, I made a living. I used to haul timber with my horses. It was hard work. I done it. I used to leave early in the morning. I'd come home late at night, be about 10 o'clock before I get finished, with my work. Then I'd go have a little sleep and wake up early in the morning again, feed my horses, and, get them ready for work. Oh, it was hard, but still I enjoyed doing it. I was doing it for my family.
We've talked about your children, Bill. Where did they go to school?
Well, some of my children went to school on the reserve, and some of them went to boarding school, and that's in Spanish.
And how was the boarding school different from the school on the reserve?
Well, the school on the reserve wasn't too bad when they went to the boarding school. But still, they had to have some time to study. But when they're at home, like day school, in the evening, well, you couldn't stop them from going out. They had got too much time to study. So when they're in the boarding school, well, then they got all the time they want, and they have some discipline as far as doing their work is concerned. They done pretty good, I think, at least.
How long would your children be away from home when you went to boarding school?
Not too long. Sometimes they used to come home once a month, and I wasn't living too far from a boarding school. And the boarding school that they went to was more up to date, and then it wasn't like the time that I went to school. Of course, this is a good many years ago when I went to school in a boarding school. Times are different. The times are different when they went to a boarding school. The girls and boys sometimes used to meet together and get out and visit one another when they were in Spanish boarding school. They had a different system, and there weren't too many French-speaking prefects or people that's running the school at that time, not like in my days.
None of your children speak Ojibwe?
Just the two oldest ones. My oldest boy that died used to speak the Ojibwe language, and the one that's living over here, my daughter. But the rest of them, they don't know how to talk Indian. It's too bad, We used to talk Indian. My wife used to talk Indian quite a bit, But of course, when they played with other children, and then the other children don't talk Indian. Of course, there was some English-speaking children there too. So they just didn't go the way it should have went anyway. When I went to school, I was forbidden to talk my language, and with the other boys that I knew that I could converse with.
You were supposed to practice English.
Yeah. They were only asking me to talk the English language. Of course, you couldn't blame the principal or the superior at that time, because it was the policy of the Department of Indian Affairs that nobody should speak the Indian language well at school, which I think was wrong as far as that, but now they're beginning to realize where they had made their mistake. We had to go back and teach Indians, the young Indian folks to talk the Indian language. It's kind of hard, for them. Of course, it's hard for the one that's teaching the language. I recall some of the people down south there. They teach the Indian language and at school for about an hour, I think. They get $10 an hour for teaching the children, which is good for them anyway. Go with these Iroquois boys from they used to be able to talk their language, of course. I don't know what the difference was, that we couldn't talk the language.
Where did they come from? Where was their reserve?
That Gupnawa? Their reserve would be in Gupnawa, across from Montreal. Some of them were from St. Regis, Cornwall.
Well, they came that far to the school on Manitoulin Island
Right.
that you attended.
Thank you so much for listening, and come back again next week for another episode from the Stories of Northern Life by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. Bye for now.